So in this video, I wanted to touch on the future of accessible transportation. And for those of you who are fully sighted and fully mobile and maybe thinking, oh, this isn't going to, affect me, you never know. You might have a relative, you might have a friend, you yourself, you could go to work tomorrow and end up into an accident that ends up severely changing your life. Go take a look at my video that I put up just the other day, yesterday actually, at the time of this recording, called "You Are Not Invincible," and you can hear more about that. But in this video, I just wanted to highlight something that I found interesting. Nowadays, if you have a disability of any kind and you want to get around, you have a plethora of options. You've got, and I'm talking about independent. Okay, I'm not talking about asking your family or your friend to drop what they're doing and drive you around, which I know that a lot of them are willing to do, and that's a good thing. But there are times when they can't. Okay, so we're talking about those times. So you've got things like Dial-A-Ride, ADA paratransit services. You've got an accessible taxi cab, which, to be honest, I try to avoid cabs as much as I can because of the expense. And there's also Uber and Lyft, but if you, for any reason, have to use a wheelchair, whether it be a part of the time or all of the time, unfortunately, Uber and Lyft, to my knowledge, do not have accessible vehicles. Because part of the problem is that people use their own vehicles, and unless they themselves have a relative or a family member or a friend who needs that kind of accessibility, chances are they wouldn't have a vehicle that is accessible off the top of their head. Because again, people don't really realize, they don't think about these things. They think that they're invincible, and they're not. Again, go back to my previous video for info and more info on that. But so far, these are the more common ways to get around. But honestly, I think that's going to be changing. People of my generation and up-and-coming generations honestly don't care about cars. They don't care about tinkering around with motors. They just want to get from point A to point B. And for somebody who has a disability, I don't care if... Now, I'm personally... I love cars, okay? They're a hobby of mine, okay? But at the same time, I'm not the type of person to where if I need to get somewhere, I don't care if they send me a Rolls Royce or if they send me a hamster wheel. Okay? Well, yeah, actually I do care if they hand me a hamster wheel, because that'd be just weird. Can you just imagine that? A giant hamster wheel just rolling down the road? You get my point. And people who do not have disabilities, younger people, are the same way. They don't care about cars like previous generations did. To them, their cell phone is their car. There are a lot of young people who are not even bothering to get their driver's license, and especially in metro areas like New York, Chicago. They don't necessarily need to if their living arrangements are such that transportation is readily available. And in my area, for instance, I've got Uber, I've got Lyft, I've got taxi service, and I've got paratransit. And for the most part, I primarily use paratransit because of the cost involved with the other services. Let's see. But nowadays, I think that could end up changing, and I'll show you. This was just unveiled by the press today. The New York International Auto Show, I think it's New York, yeah, is next week at the time of this recording. And they unveiled, and Jaguar unveiled to the press, or Jaguar, if you live across the pond, Jaguar unveiled a new version of their I-Pace, fully electric SUV. Now, the I-Pace has been known for a while. I can't remember if it's available now or if it's supposed to go on sale next year. But I'm going to draw your attention to two things. First of all, is that is a LiDAR system. Many years ago, I did a video on how these self-driving cars work, back when Google was using Toyota Priuses. And that keyword there, Google, is probably going to be a second giveaway for those of you who are in the know. For those of you who are not in the know, excuse me, LiDAR basically, it's like, if you remember those old-fashioned siren lights that spin around in a circle, this is sort of the same thing, except it spins much, much faster, and instead of producing light, its purpose is to have a 360-degree view of the surroundings around the vehicle. So that, combined with these sensors here, helps the vehicle to be fully aware of its surroundings, and as such is able to self-drive. That is the secret sauce. Waymo. Waymo is a dedicated self-driving outfit. Used to be Google's efforts. I don't remember if Waymo is actually owned by Google and they just changed the name, or if it's their own completely independent, sort of endeavor that's away from Google. But now self-driving technology is still in its infancy, roughly. There was a crash recently with an Uber vehicle that killed someone, and my condolences to their family. I'm sorry for your loss. But there's a whole hoop-de-blah surrounding it. Self-driving research has been suspended. Uber's self-driving research has been suspended because of the outcome because of what had happened. And I don't blame them, because this is brand new technology, and what you're basically doing is you're putting robots on the road in a sea of humans. Okay, so I do not blame people for being skeptical. I do not blame people for being cautious. I'm also cautious, because when it comes to accessible transport, I'm going to want to be able to get from point A to point B without having to worry about a driver, without having to worry about asking family and friends. That means this technology has to be bulletproof. And we're not there yet, but one of these days we will be. That's why I consider self-driving to be one of the ways, one of the systems for future accessible transport. And note that I said one, because I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket with this. There are other options as well that are up and coming. Excuse me. There we go. This is the Ultra PRT, or Personal Rapid Transit. Now, I've spoken a couple years ago about this. About 4 years ago, I had a video dedicated to the PRT and suggested it might be the future of paratransit. And I stand by that claim. Many years ago, about 4 years ago, I emailed the gentleman at Ultra Global PRT who developed the vehicle you see in front of you, and they said that the device, the vehicle, is fully compliant with ADA accessibility laws, as well as the equivalent laws over in the UK. They've got these buzzing all over Heathrow, and they're just so much. These are a blast. These are an absolute blast. If you've been to any big city airport where you've had to take a tram to transfer between terminals, I know Heathrow, or Hartsfield, Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson International has a tram that goes from baggage claim / check-in security to all of the terminals. And that is completely robotic, but it's overseen by computer monitors, by human monitors monitoring computer systems, and they are able to effectively stop a train in the event that one other might be delayed. The same sort of concept exists here. There is an overseer in the master control room who can halt traffic if something does happen. But I could see this as being a supplement to dedicated to paratransit systems. Like, for instance, our paratransit system is working with one of the rideshare services to create an on-demand service, because right now you have no choice but to wait a few days in advance. Well, if you want to go somewhere right away, really your only option is somebody with a disability is either to call somebody who can take you or to pay for Lyft or Uber or a cab. Well, I think that something like the PRT system could be a supplement to that. And the way I picture it, and this is just completely in my head, okay? But the way I picture it is that if these could fit inside of a garage, it wouldn't take much to effectively build a small platform, because really, if you take a look, all you would need would be maybe 7 or 8 inches off the ground in order for the loading bay to become completely 100% level with the interior of the vehicle, and there you go. You've got wheelchair access, and you could summon a vehicle, and they could park in your garage and wait for you. You go ahead, you get your luggage in. If you're going to the airport, for example, you get your luggage in, and there's actually it's a little hard to see, but on this particular model, there's a door on the far end there. I don't know what that is. I think that might be luggage. But let's just say that it is for this example. You put your luggage in, you get yourself seated comfortably, and off you go to the airport on these in this fully automated, completely self-guided system. Now, in terms of accident avoidance, the way the system is designed, it's meant to operate on a laser-guided path. And again, going back to the example of the tram at Hartsfield-Jackson in Atlanta, you go back to that business of how the system is monitored. Well, again, that monitoring shows the controllers where every single vehicle is on the network, so traffic accidents are practically zero. So this is another example. Again, it's the personal rapid transit system, on demand, fully autonomous. And you could, I would think, summon your vehicle through an app. If a local paratransit agency bought some of these, it would be fantastic, I think. So another example of the future of accessible transport follows on from the Jaguar I-Pace. A couple of years ago, General Motors and Lyft had inked out a deal to give Lyft was going to be acquiring autonomous, fully self-driving Chevrolet Bolts, as in Bolt with a B as in Bravo, the little electric hatchback. That said, I haven't heard much about the deal, and given this recent development with the Uber crash, I don't suspect this will be going anywhere anytime soon. But again, future speculation. There's going to be trial and error, and eventually we will get it right. But all of these vehicles have been land vehicles. There's one possibility we haven't considered, and that is taking to the skies. This is a completely automated drone that is able to fly. It's able to fly and act as sort of an air taxi. Now, I can't remember. I think they were in the middle of testing these. I don't know what the word is on them. But all of these transit system options for the future have one thing in common. They are autonomous. They are self-guided. Now, like I said, they are overseen by a collection of master controllers in a central location to avoid accidents. In this case, with the EHong 184 here, it would be air traffic control. They could probably tap into the same sort of air traffic control, say, I don't know, the police use or something. Um, but the point is, on-demand, fully autonomous transport, and for people with disabilities, if these methods take off, this could be fantastic. I could see a central hub, fully accessible app, as in screen reader, large print font, uh, the works as far as accessibility is concerned. And this from this single app, you could go and say, if you're going across town and you want to get there quick, you could take a flying taxi, or if you are heading off just to the doctor's office, you could take a PRT pod. Just having that choice. And think about this. As somebody with a disability, chances are not many people, I know I myself am not, invested in car ownership. Now, there are people who are, and I'm not knocking that. Okay, I'm just saying as an example. If you're not invested in car ownership, then the overall cost to support these services wouldn't be all that much. So let's take a look at this. Let's just say, so let's say if we have a single app, Waymo, the PRT system, Lyft, autonomous self-driving, and the eHung 184, autonomous flying taxi. Excuse me. Let's say each of these, say 10, 5, 5, 5. And what were those numbers? Dollar signs. Money amounts. So let's see. $25 a month to keep all these systems running. Flat rate. And the systems would be available to the user, whatever they want to use, any time of the day, on demand, fully accessible. Again, large fonts in the app, speech-driven interface for screen reader users, wheelchair accessible vehicles in the case of the PRT system. I think that if this works, and the keywords are if this works, that the future for fully accessible independent transport for people with disabilities is looking pretty bright. My personal favorite is the PRT. I love this little thing. It is just so, it's a futuristic little, I don't know what to call it. It's just a fun looking little car here. And what's really nice is if you're willing to get all scrunchy and lovey-dovey, I suspect this vehicle could probably hold 6 plus one wheelchair, making 7. Okay? So, I mean, this is incredible. All this technology, all this future implication for this technology is fantastic. And a lot of people are going to be thinking, well, wait a moment, what about artificial intelligence coming and taking over our lives? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I have that worry as well. I mean, how far is too far? You have to ask. But put yourself in my shoes. I can't see out of my right eye. I have to use 3 times magnification in order to see the computer screen. I have to use speech to read long passages, otherwise my eyes get tired pretty easily. I sometimes have difficulty getting in and out of vehicles due to my cerebral palsy, depending on what the vehicle is, especially those low-slung sports cars with high door sills. That I haven't actually tried one of those yet, but I could imagine it being hell. Imagine not being able to have what fully able-bodied people often take for granted. All it takes is one traffic accident and boom. So consider living outside the box for a little bit. This technology has the potential to completely revolutionize accessible transport. No more would we have to say to our doc, hey, I'm late because my bus is late getting me, or to my teacher, I wouldn't have to say,
6
I'm sorry,
PM.
so-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so, I'm sorry I'm late. My bus was late. My bus broke down. Uh-uh. Now, that breaking down comment does bring about one very reasonable question. What happens if there's a problem? And this is why I think things are still in the beta stage, as they should be. But if things go well, I think there could really be something here. And having more than one option would be fantastic. I mean, again, you've got autonomous driving with Waymo, the PRT, autonomous driving with Lyft, and even an autonomous air taxi. I mean, that would be just fantastic to have the option to be able to take those routes whatever way we wish without necessarily having to rely on others. And again, like I said, at the moment, if we want to be independent, there is Lyft and Uber. But for those of us who say, I'm not one of them, but for somebody, but I know people who are, for somebody who's in a wheelchair, either part of the time or all the time, options are pretty limited. Uber and Lyft, to my knowledge, again, have no wheelchair accessible vehicles, so you have no choice but to utilize either paratransit or an accessible taxi, particularly if you're a power chair user. So I think that having a new way to get around, new options, not just the one, but new options, all regulated by a single app. It's kind of like having, for instance, I've got an app called Smart News that goes out to fetch the news from all major websites. You could utilize Microsoft Mail to get your Gmail. If transportation were made accessible in that form through a single app, and you were able to keep it running, keep the system running, keep the networks running for a low monthly fee, and again, if you're not going to bother with a car, it's actually, it's not all that expensive. I mean, this could really be something here, and we could have programs in place to help people who may not be able to pay for it immediately or may need a discount. But that's all again, speculation concept. I just think that if done right, this could really be something. What do you guys think? Thank you for watching. Comments are welcome, and have a nice day.